Vagus nerve. You know, in a way, everybody's talking about the vagus nerve. I mean, medical doctors, it's all over the internet. There's people that are just talking about the vagus nerve quite a bit. Because technically, it could be considered the most important nerve in our body. Vagus is basically a Latin derivative word that means the wanderer, because the vagus nerve in our body is literally over a mile long. What's really interesting, it's what we call the cranial nerve, which means it actually comes from the brain stem itself. It comes right through the head, into the brain stem, exits the brain stem, travels down to the top 2/3 of our colon, heart and lung are the primary functions. The vagus nerve is exclusively sensory. So basically it's picking up information and then telling the brain what's going on. We call that an afferent nerve. It's also exclusively in the parasympathetic nervous system. In a video or two before earlier, we talked about the autonomic system in our body. I always love to recall that the automatic system, because that's the part of our nervous system that does stuff automatically, like digestion and blood flow and hormone regulation. The stuff you know is happening, but you don't control it, that's the autonomic or automatic nervous system. Many of you have heard me talk about gas versus brake. So it's kind of a spectrum going from parasympathetic to sympathetic. Parasympathetic is growth, development, and healing. And then sympathetic is pretty much exclusively protection, okay? So it does regulate back and forth. If you have a perfectly healthy system and you go into sympathetic for a good reason, like somebody cuts you off on the freeway, and you come back to parasympathetic, you're wonderful, it's great. The challenge is a lot of us can get stuck in sympathetic. I mean, honestly, right now, there's more stress in our environment than ever in recorded history as far as how much data. It may not be as intense as going through World War II or maybe, other crazy things that's happened in the history, but it's a constant stress. It's over and over and over, always, always, always. Social media, of course, the news, just our conversation, how things are going. So we are constantly being driven into sympathetic or protective flow. Now, remember, back to the vagus nerve, that's the parasympathetic. That's why it could be the most important nerve we have in our body. Also, this nerve is highly vulnerable to birth trauma. Technically, this nerve is just vulnerable to birth itself, even if you don't have birth trauma, because any kind of serious pressure between the skull and the upper neck is going to irritate the vagus nerve. Now, of course, traction out of the womb, forceps delivery, vacuum extraction, cesarean, because these are all pulling the baby out of the womb. Remember, the baby's supposed to be pushed out of the womb, not pulled out of the womb. These are all going to irritate and damage our vagus nerve. There's a study that the osteopathic profession did that 99 out of 100 babies of all types of birth, whether it be vaginal, natural, cesarean, you name it, 99 out of 100 had somatic dysfunction or irritation, if you will, to the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, again, is a sensory nerve in the parasympathetic system. It tells your body what it needs to do to be healthy and to strive and to be functional. Now, if we talk also about baby development, what are called milestones, we got just, gut as a brand new baby. That's all you got to really do when you're brand new is be able to poop. And then you got immunity, and then the baby has to go through speech, and it has to go through emotional stability, then it has to go through cognitive and intelligence stability. Every single one of these processes literally has to be learned. They kind of start pretty good with the gut thing, but all the rest is coming down the road. None of it's actually there yet. The very, very end of that, what's called the prefrontal cortex, is where we make mature decisions, roughly our mid-20s. So we got all the way from birth to mid-20s where our body is developing to be our best. And how would your body develop? How would it know really what to do to be its best if the data coming to it was not ideal? In the computer industry, we call that garbage in, garbage out. I don't really like that phrase in the human world, but gosh, it's kind of the same thing. We want to make sure that we're sensing our environment very, very, very healthy so we don't end up with a dysfunctional or certainly less than our potential. So, if your kids, especially the adolescents all the way up through high school, is easily angered, is easily anxious, is easily overwhelmed, they're likely struggling from some stress on the vagus nerve. Think about that same baby or that same young person you have in your life. How are they as a baby? Were they colicky? Were they having a hard time with pooping? Were they having a hard time with getting on the breast? Keep in mind that every development has to go one to the next, one to the next, one to the next. So in a way, if you look at a brand new baby and they're having problems with pooping or having problems getting on the breast, it kind of can be looked as a good thing. Think of the gas gauge on your car. If it's really close to empty, it tells you, you better do something about it. You gotta get some gas in that vehicle. So if our baby has some of these early symptoms, that your medical doctor will say, oh, don't worry, they grow out of it. Well, technically they're growing into it. Because they will develop their gut eventually, it will get better, but it won't be at a potential. And then they will develop their immune system, but it really might not be at its potential. Then they really will develop their speech center, but it might not be at its potential. You get the point? So we really want to look for potential in our kids, not just that they survived, that they got through the moment. So you need to learn much more about the vagus nerve. It's kind of all over the internet. Remember, what happens in the vagus nerve does not stay in the vagus nerve. I'm Dr. Jim Rolls here at Five Parks Chiropractic. Thank you for your time. Oh, attached to this video is Dr. Tony Ebel's video on the same subject. Awesome. Definitely worth the time to watch. Have a great day.